Working our way through the middle of the week, folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. My next guest is somebody who's basking in the milieu of the Renaissance and of the psychedelic Southern California music scene. I think in some ways, my show has really been dedicated to authenticity amongst musicians, original music, and taking chances, ultimately never really playing the same song the same way once, and that's really hard to do. Unless you have your rudiments and your foundation underneath you. But I reached out to my guest last night, and she was totally game for this interview. She's bearing the cold weather in Chicago. Sara Melson, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I wanted to ask you about how you, in your own mind, how you developed your own internal time feel. Everybody has their own heartbeat. Everybody's rhythm comes from their heart, and that's what makes it unique. And we've really been, for better or for worse, inundated with drum machines, click tracks, and a lot of technology that has stripped away that humanity. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your own internal time feel and how you developed that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do want to qualify that by saying I'm not anti-click track or drum machine.
Sure.
Because actually it's super fun to do all that kind of music. But, my songs start out in a pretty organic way. It's totally analog. I'm just either playing piano or guitar, or sometimes I'm even just on a walk or a hike and something comes into my head and I just sing it into my iPhone. So generally, I get sort of hit by inspiration in a very sort of organic way, but I'm open to it being produced and recorded in any way, shape, or form. I just tend to gravitate towards a kind of mid-tempo, down-tempo feel, but that's not to say I'm not interested in writing more happier, upbeat songs, because hopefully I will someday. But for the most part, my songs tend to be pretty reflective, I would say, contemplative, dare I say, tackling sort of deep spiritual questions about life and growth and change and sort of the fleeting nature of like the moment and what we're making of it, things like that.
I mean, did you, from your earliest times that you can remember, were you performing without a rhythm section? I mean, were you just using like a guitar and your voice, and how, and really talk, if you can talk about the first time, or, when you got comfortable.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, when you got comfortable with the rhythm section.
No, absolutely. That's a great question. So I have a long history as a performer from childhood, but it started out in different mediums. So I was actually, I was always a singer, kind of like just a closet singer, but I wasn't performing as a singer other than being in like choir and, musicals and things like that in school. I wasn't performing as a singer until actually right after college. So up until then, my performance, whenever I was on a stage, I was either acting in a play or a musical, or I was dancing because I was a ballet dancer for years. So I was always very comfortable on the stage, but I hadn't really taken the step of like accompanying myself playing either piano or guitar, on my own songs or even covers. I mean, in general, just playing out. And so when I did that, it was just by myself. I kind of jumped into the deep end without a band and was just like, I'm just going to do this on my own, So I've always had to be my own rhythm section. And so developing a really good sense of rhythm has served me really well when it comes to playing with a band, because it's just, you got to lock in to the pocket, as you know. And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of pride myself on my rhythm. Not that it's certainly far from perfect or anything, but it's just definitely something that's really important to me.
I guess I'm curious as you know, before tuners, people tuned with their hearts, and I know people don't want to be quote unquote out of tune, but the problem is with younger generations now, and just in general. I mean, you start to tune. Um, if you start to lock in a specific tuning, then that can literally become the frequency that you're operating on in your whole life, and that's not an organic or natural thing. Speaking about like guys like Alan Toussaint, who I've interviewed back in the day, who's left us now. You know, he used to tune with your heart, and I just wonder how much you try amidst this saturation of technology and perfection and need for
Yeah.
perfection, whether you are able to literally, um, well, I mean, if you could talk, I mean, is it okay for you? I mean, there are no wrong notes. Do you subscribe to that theory?
You know, yes and no. I mean, I guess you could take it to an extreme and just say, like with any kind of art form, it's basically subjective, right? You could go to a museum of modern art and see a squiggle on a page, and one person would think it was a masterpiece, and another person would think, hey, I could do that. That's nothing, So I think music is the same way. The reason why there are so many different types of music is not everyone's going to respond to the exact same thing. And then there are these timeless songs that sort of, for some reason, hit at everyone's heart. And those are kind of the ones that I'm trying to go for. And I mean, I'm thinking about like the classics, like Cat Stevens and Simon and Garfunkel, and certain Beatles songs, and I mean, there's just certain songs. I mean, Marvin Gaye, and I mean, there are classic songs. I mean, like Stand by Me. That just it doesn't really matter what kind of music you're into. You're still gonna find pleasure and solace and joy in listening to that music. You could be, a metalhead. You could be in the, pop country. You could be into acid jazz. You could be into like any number of genres. But I think that what I'm going for are just the kind of songs that like awaken and ignite people's deep place in their heart that is sort of a universal place. So in that regard, I don't know if I would say that there are no wrong notes. I don't just, write a song and go, oh, it's perfect. I go back and I generally speaking, I edit it. I do. I work on it. Then I spend a couple days. I go back and I go, you know what? I'm gonna change this part. I'm gonna go here. So I give it thought. I give it attention. I give it focus.
I want to clarify because, I mean,
Yeah.
it's very well articulated. I'm talking more about in the live setting because, for instance,
Yeah.
Miles Davis used to go up to Charlie Parker and he'd be like, hey, that dude's playing that tune in the wrong key, and Bird would say, well, it's only wrong if you don't follow along with him.
Right.
Okay,
right.
so that's what I'm
right.
getting at is the idea that on stage, if somebody hits a clam note, which, I mean, some of the most
Yeah.
classic, and I'm talking about live, I mean, are you comfortable enough to, that's really what I mean with no wrong notes. I'm not talking about putting it out pressing on a record, but I'm talking about
Oh yeah.
the security to say, this person's going off in a different direction for whatever reason. Let's follow him. We'll see where it goes. I mean, is that the kind of music that you are? I mean, you have to forgive me. I haven't seen you live, but I mean, in a live
Yeah.
context, is that something that you get off on?
What's really funny, you're asking me this because I'm about to release pretty soon, actually, or at least I'm compiling it and putting it together. My last live show, which was it was at the beautiful church in the Hollywood Hills,
Wow.
and yeah, it was amazing.
Wow.
And I had it filmed and recorded, so we recorded live, just as it was off of the board. and I'm going to actually put that out, warts and all. So to answer your question, yeah, there's
Please
plenty
hit
of
me.
slang.
Please send me to. I'd love to hear. So, I mean, when you say
Oh,
warts,
I will.
because I mean
I will.
listen, that's the truth is that
Hmm.
when I interviewed Mason Williams, and he gets lost in the shuffle, and he was a lead writer for the Smothers Brothers, but he also was like you know um, he worked a lot with Ken Kesey, and I've dedicated a lot of my show to the Merry Pranksters, and he said, he goes, the two most brilliant people I've ever met in my life, he goes, were Ken Kesey and Pete Seeger, because they were magical people, and they also accepted humanity, warts and all. So when you say warts, I mean, there were
Hmm.
some. What was a wart that you're willing to? I mean, and is it really? Did you were there some of these little clams or flubs that actually accentuated the song or took it in a different direction?
Oh, my, oh my God, that happens to me all the time. That
Hmm.
is literally like my whole identity as a performer because I just kind of let it. I just kind of let it roll, you know. I don't really censor my emotions when I sing. So I'm not going for perfection. I'm not going for a stylized, affected voice that I hear in my head that is supposed to sound perfect like some other singer I've heard. I'm singing my feelings. I'm just singing my feelings. And so some of the time, yeah, my voice cracks or it breaks or it screeches or there's a blue note that's a little bit flat, but it that's the icing on the cake. That's the stuff that makes it delicious, in my opinion. But I mean, I don't know, how other people respond to my voice. But here, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Someone said something to me. It wasn't this show, but it was like a show a while ago. This girl came up to me afterwards and she said, it's funny because you don't have a perfect voice, but you have one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. And that really meant a lot to me because it reminds me of like if you've ever heard Neil Young live. I actually was fortunate enough to I saw him very recently play live. And it's just it's it's all over the place as far as intonation and it's gorgeous. It's the most moving. I mean, it just makes you weep, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so that was a huge compliment. And then another thing someone said to me once was, the one thing about your voice is that whenever I hear it, I know it's you. It's not. There's no question of like, you turn on the radio and you're like, okay, who's that again? It could be one of like 20 girls right now,
That's
and
I know
like,
you're nailing. I mean, it's breaking through the morass and finding your own. I mean,
yeah,
that's the same way that any of the instrumental cats. I mean, back kind of before stereo, but I mean, there was all people kind of always prided themselves on being able to recognize piano players
right.
within the first 8 bars. So if that, and that to me is, I mean, I just was interviewing Mary Simpson Mercy, who was part of the Ace of Cups. I don't know if you know who that band was. They were the first female rock band in '65. They never actually caught a record then, but they've had a renaissance. And she was just saying that she saw Joan Baez at the Hollywood Bowl in '64, and she's like, I want to bring out this guy, Bobby Dylan, and he was kind of a relative unknown, and he started to sing Masters of War, and at first people kind of started to boo because he was a little bit off pitch or out of key. But to
Right.
me, like, that is the authenticity that is. I think it's beautiful because as long as you are conscious or aware or like that you are breaking away from we are in a real serious crisis in music with homogenization of sound. Everything's starting to
Yeah.
sound very familiar, and what you just said about your voice is essential for
Yeah.
liberation.
It's a, it really is, and it's huge for me. I just yeah. I actually had a producer say to me once, if you want to make a bunch a bunch of money right now in the music industry, if you want to make it right now in the music industry, you're just going to have to change how you sing. You're just going to have to sing like the millennials sing right now. You're just going to have to do that singing voice the way they all do that same exact singing voice. He's like, you're going to have to do that. That's what's happening right now. That's what's hot right now. And I was like, well, that's not going to be happening.
No, it's not. I mean, and I don't even agree with his. Listen, I don't even agree with his premise because how if everybody's doing it, how are you supposed to make money? I mean, it's going to somebody else. And so, the idea of stage performance early in your career, do you believe has helped you in your on-stage demeanor and presence as an entertainer? I mean, it's very interesting sometimes. You look at cats on stage, and it's really supposed to be fun. I mean, obviously you want to raise the collective consciousness of the band and have it go out to the audience and then back, and that's, it helps when, like Frank Zappa would say, fellas, I mean, they could be playing the most complicated tune in odd meters and all. And he's like, guys, make sure you're smiling because the audience can tell if you're not having fun. I mean, do you feel like that theatrical sort of those rudiments have helped you, your on-stage presence?
150%. First of all, I want to say my journey with performing my music in terms of my stage presence has really evolved because it's gone through a lot of changes. When I started out, because I'm kind of hard on myself, and so I started out and I just didn't. I was doing it before I felt like I was good enough to be doing it. So I guess that's the only way you get better is by doing it. But the problem is when you're starting out and you're doing it and you're making mistakes and you're maybe singing off key or you're missing a note on the guitar or you're going to a chord in a not very delicate way on the piano or something's off. It can really throw you, when you're on stage. And it would just throw me into this like spiral, and I would just downward spiral and just I would freak, and you could see that.
Well, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. And I had this real problem, and it developed into like stage fright, whereas I had never been afraid to be on stage before when I was a kid in plays or doing ballet or anything. I'd never ever been. I loved being on stage, but suddenly, me alone with a guitar singing at a microphone, I was just petrified that I would somehow, pardon my French, but f up.
Yeah, you can curse on this, by the way. It's fine. There's no problem.
Oh, I can.
Yeah. Okay. Let it fly. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Bottom line is I was kind of like paralyzed by like my own fear, and as the years went on, I had to sort of mitigate that fear by doing some work on myself, not only by just practicing and getting better at what I was doing, which really helps. It makes you feel less afraid when you're good, you've got it together. But also, I do a ton of spiritual work. Like I meditate, I do yoga. I've worked really hard on sort of trying to dissolve my ego a little bit, so that the ego isn't so vulnerable to these kinds of terrors. So now, by the way,
but I just want to tell you, because you're really riffing right now. Speak into the phone just the way you just did a second ago, because that was very clear. Otherwise, it sounded a little bit muddled.
Oh.
Yeah, you sound perfect right now.
Kind of work on yourself as a human being tends to manifest in yourself as an artist, So if you do no work on yourself, you'll get up on stage and you'll be sort of a larger than life version of someone who's done no work on themselves. And if you're trying, like I really endeavor to try to be a better person, and meaning to not let my ego necessarily rule take the reins, because when my ego takes the reins, all that I care about is impressing people and getting validation and being perfect. And
I think this is very I really enjoy hearing you I mean, have you used obviously the more uh, you talk about this idea of the ego, and I just like obviously like yogic practice or meditation is I find that to be a very fluid word, but I mean, have you? Sometimes the best ego deflator is psychedelics. I mean, have you tried?
Oh, yeah.
Have you tried those? Because I mean that can really humble you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, for me, and I don't know how much we're allowed to talk about all
Ah,
that
talk.
stuff on here, but
Just riff away.
uh, yeah, I mean, a huge part of my spiritual growth has been, I have been actually undergoing a practice of what's called microdosing.
Are you? I see.
Uh,
See. This is our. Please, let's. I mean, let's get together
okay.
on this. This is what now.
Yeah.
Explain. Take us through the journey here.
Okay. Well, I was sort of like undiagnosed depressive as a teenager, a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, but just sort of was left undiagnosed. And then as I sort of became a young adult, it really was, I didn't realize how much this was kind of like crippling me. And, of course I was in therapy and tried many different meditations, and nothing would work, and it would just numb me or make me lethargic or make me, nothing was really helping.
Right.
And then, living in California, you tend to be on the forefront of a lot of new health, health and wellness sort of like approaches, and one of which, of course, is the medical cannabis industry. And so when that kind of came to the forefront, someone said to me, you really should try to try a microdosing of, like a medical cannabis. And I was like, I'll try anything. So
I just want to be clear though. You're talking about psilocybin, like
so
psychedelics, or
I'll get.
yeah.
I'm getting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. It's just a step-by-step story.
Absolutely.
So, it started out with just actual. It just started out with edibles of marijuana, essentially CBD plus THC, but marijuana, cannabis, edibles. Started out with that, and which is amazing for everything from physical pain to emotional. I mean, it's just for me anyway. The smaller dose in the edible form was sort of the magic bullet. So that started to really help. And then I also I do incorporate a very, very small, tiny dose of a chocolate that is a psilocybin chocolate as well.
Yes,
So
we just came across those
yeah.
in New York. Somebody came over. I was at my buddy's place, and we were getting some cannabis edibles actually. And I was like, "Do you actually have psilocybin?" And she's like, "Well, we have these chocolates." And my buddy wound up, just. I mean, it was just like he took it obviously in a small way, but also it was just sort of melting in his hand. And I mean, I'll be very clear. I mean, I am not. I did a lot of psychedelics in a very short period of time when I got to be a freshman in college, and I'm really not in a space. Maybe if we were together or something in the woods, or I mean, just like someplace where I was sort of comfortable. I don't feel right now that I am in the right headspace to do it. That's the thing, is that I think with psilocybin and things like that. I mean, again, the microdose. You hope you're going to come back from it. You figure you will come back. I mean, sometimes I just don't want to come across as if I'm like really able to do it myself, because I just think it's important that you have to be in the right frame of mind, because I've suffered with anxiety and depression, since I was a kid.
Sure. To clarify, I mean, I don't think people really understand what I mean by microdose. It's tiny.
Yeah.
It's so tiny that it's really not, I mean, you're completely functional. You can drive a car, go to work. It's not affecting you like, when people think, oh, someone on a mushroom trip or someone doing ayahuasca or there's nothing like that. And in fact, I'm kind of like you. I don't really, not that I don't have time to do that because it might be really a breakthrough and I'm sure it would be great.
Yeah.
But right now for me, I have a lot going on and I need to be highly functional and this is really working for me. And so it's just
I love
what
it.
it is. Yeah, it's incredibly, it's miraculous. But there have been, I mean, recently there's a whole school now opened up a graduate program of studying the effects of this at Johns Hopkins. It's one of the most major medical schools in the country, and it's called the Center for Consciousness and Psychedelics. And I'm probably misquoting that. It's something along those lines. There was a giant article in the Harvard Medical Journal about the breakthrough treatments of psychedelics. So it's there are all sorts of political reasons why this is not approved, and why the pharmaceutical companies are sticking by their antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. But I mean, I really do believe that somewhere not in the distant future, this will be incorporated into the mainstream because it's just powerful because it's all organic matter, right? So you're not ingesting any chemicals. And it's very, what it does is it kind of just, it just makes you happier. Honestly, it's hard to explain. It's just, it's like a way to, you wake up and you kind of look outside and you're like, wow, the leaves just look a little more green. It's just kind of like that feeling of like everything's just a little brighter, and you're able to sort of be in the present moment and really appreciate with wonder and awe, like just the magnitude of like the present moment, and how beautiful it is. And you're just kind of, you're not, because I have a tendency to sort of, my mind will just like race to the future or like dwell on the past.
Right.
It's very hard.
Sure.
Very hard for me to like ground myself in the present. And so this has been instrumental, no pun intended, in, just placing me squarely in the present and just giving me this sense of ease and gratitude. And it's been a miraculous gift. I mean, I can't even tell you how grateful I am. I'm off of I don't take anything except for this.
How often,
So
would you say that, you can sleep on it or?
I just do it once in the morning and then I'm good.
I think this is absolutely profound. This is, and they're like little, wow. It's phenomenal. Listen, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I don't expect you to know who this is, but I do want you to pay attention to the content, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Okay.
Durga Ma she's mother, and she's all compassionate and all merciful and all loving. But just like a mama bear, she will kick some tail if she has to,
What does it look like? But you, as a servant, you can also kick ass too.
Yes,
right?
I can.
I would love to see that. Anyway,
yes. I bring that to my social justice work.
Right, but you gotta ring the bell sometimes. But did you choose that name, or how did that come about?
So my name actually came to me. It came to me in a meditation. I was meditating. I saw the goddess Durga, and she presented me with the name. And then I went to my teacher and was like, holy cow, this thing just happened. I don't want to culturally appropriate. I don't want to do anything that's disrespectful. Is it okay for me to use this name? And he explained to me that his Guru Maharaji had said that when you're reborn into the spiritual path, you can choose your own name if you want to. And that being said, the mother herself gave me this name. So I guess in a way I chose it, but it came through a meditation and a visualization, and then I got the blessing of my teacher, so that I felt comfortable using it.
That was a spiritual teacher and kirtan leader down in Long Beach, Durga Dasi, that I interviewed her on Facebook Live back in earlier this year. And are you familiar with Durga? Do you know who Durga is?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. So I want you to talk about your spirit name, or the ones you feel most directly connected to. My first book was just birthed, and my spiritual teacher, Tasiji Munoz, who's he's my uncle. He's an older musician and a teacher as well. And he called my spirit name for a long time was Sem Lodro, which was spirit of mind. And then after the book came out, he called me Rigpa Lodro. And in Sanskrit, that means grounded to the source.
I like that.
And you talk about staying in the moment, Sarah, and I think like being just sitting in that moment, sitting in that space, that spiritual component is key. And I'd like you to talk about your spiritual name.
Well, that's interesting. I don't have a specific.
That's okay. I
spiritual
mean,
name.
who do you get off on?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a yogic tradition, so in terms of the yogic tradition, Hanuman figures very strongly. Lakshmi, Hanuman, Shiva, of course. But I think it's really whatever works for anyone, as long as you are connected to, like I said, being in your breath and in the present, and it connected to gratitude and kindness and connection with others. And that loops right back to what you were asking about, what is it like to be on stage. So for me, being on stage used to be about look at me, listen to me, clap for me, adulation of me.
Sure, sure.
And it turned from that into something very different, which is all about the audience and uplifting and connecting with them and igniting and sparking and moving them. So it was just a shift of focus from me to them, and it became much more relaxing and easier to be on stage when it wasn't all about me, you know? So yeah, my spirituality really comes from that, from being in a calm state and trying to help others to feel that through my music, through any interaction that I might have with them. And it's taken work. I'm not really like a calm person, like naturally. It's really taken a lot of work. I would say I'm actually pretty high strung and pretty impatient.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
I
what
try
I
to
mean.
work
I mean,
on it.
I'm the same way. I mean, that's the these are hallmarks of anxiety and depression, and like projecting, and I did that for so long, and I received the Tao. I'm a Taoist. I never had a spiritual transmission in my youth, and so the Tao is really a powerful life force because it's really all about accessing your true nature and getting away from your habitual nature, and it's an evolving process. But it's important to talk to cats like yourself about because I think I mean, how quickly or can you share an experience in your performing life? It doesn't have to be music when you were able to access your multidimensional self, when you maybe left your physical body, when you saw yourself on the side of the stage. These are all very spirit. There's only two letters that separate magic and music, or the performing arts in general. And so we're kind of in a formula trip now. I don't get off on seeing nice packaged 3 or 4 minute radio friendly hits on the stage. I want people to liberate and to fall down and get up and make mistakes. I think it's totally therapeutic. So I mean, can you talk about when you accessed your multidimensional self?
Yep. It's been happening more and more because I'm really letting myself be free, especially vocally. I think it's that switch that kind of switched from the sort of self-awareness of like, or what's the word, self-consciousness of like,
Absolutely.
ooh, what do I sound like right now? To when you let that go and you just are, and you are just being, and you're just singing, it's sort of like stepping off the cliff because you're sort of going. You know what? I don't give a fuck. It's just going. It really is just kind of going like, I'm sorry, this might not be what I don't have any preconditioned, idea of what this is going to be like. I'm just opening my mouth and letting
I'm so
spirit
proud of you. No, I'm really proud.
take
I'm
me.
really proud of you. This is unbelievably important stuff to hear. I mean, and the fact that you're able to share it in the real time is
Yeah.
cathartic. Because I mean, at that it really does. I mean, all of a sudden it becomes well. I mean, for you, that pressure, expectation that you have for yourself, and also the adulation that you mentioned before, that all sort of falls away, and you can just be
Yep.
yourself. And that's
Yep.
fascinating to hear that you are in the midst of that right now.
Well, part of it is getting older, part of it is realizing that, we really don't have as much time as we think we do.
No.
And so there's no time to sort of like mess around. And so if we want to really feel at the end of our lives that we've really lived, we kind of have to take that step, because if we don't, no one's going to take it for us. And then at the end, we're going to regret that we hid, behind the mask. And so when you take off that
Behind the mask.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah,
Was there a
yeah,
definitive moment where you just said, fuck it? Like, was there just like, I
yeah,
am, can you talk about that one?
yeah. Well, sure. I had actually an interesting year. This past year, I mean, this is getting kind of personal, but yeah, I mean, I would say I almost died twice this past year. And so, without going into too much detail, coming back from that was a renewed sense of like, you know what? No, I want to, I want to be here. I have more to do here. I want to stay here. And I really want to, I want to be completely me and let the chips fall where they may, kind of thing, and just really finally genuinely not caring about what other people thought or how they judged me, and it was so liberating. And yeah, I sort of had like a near death experience. And then the second time was I sort of had this really bizarre, out of the blue, like heart palpitation thing that was like completely surreal, and ended up in the ER and ended up coming through it. But sort of like after that, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I don't even know, because it could just be any day, It just wakes you up to the reality that, like, who are we kidding? Like, none of us is getting out of here alive.
Well, I mean, did you know Neil Casal?
I did not know Neil, but I am very away from some of his best friends. So
I just want to say, I mean, it's just interesting that, I reached out to you last night, and I know nothing about your pedigree or your, resume or anything like that. And then for you to share these stories, deeply personal stories of, whatever it is that where you almost lost your life. I mean, my first book, I did 2 interviews with Neil, and we were not super close friends, but over the last year we were getting very tight because I was going to see him play at circles around in his bands and things like that, and so in June I realized that all the cats in my book are like the graybeards, the shaman cats, and I didn't have any of my peers, and I'm 41, so I was like, well, Neil's like, he's 10 years older than me, but I mean, he's basically my peer, and so I reached out to him. I was like, yo, man, I'm like, check out these excerpts, if you're cool with it, sign the waiver release form, and you'll be in my first book. And he's like, dude, stoked, can't wait, man. So he couldn't figure out how to e-sign the form, so he snail mailed it back to me, and within 10 days he had hung himself.
Oh my
And
God.
and Sarah, I guess it's very important that I'm talking to you now, because regardless of how these encounters went down, or how much pressure you put on yourself, or the expectations, or how depressed you might be at certain points. I can sit here and say that I'm glad that I wasn't a long-term friend. Like, I didn't know him for a long time, and I feel like his spirit is deeply inside of me to not only promote who he was, because now my book has been birthed and it's been dedicated to him. Part 2 is all about him. But the point is that he now has me out there searching for those, because it's a major issue within the creative arts, is this idea of depression, addiction, and also just neurotic, or we're all a bed of neuroses. And so now it makes sense that we have connected, because I want to tell you that it's very important for you to know that that you are you have a lot of, you are going to continue to not just grow as a musician, but you're going to fill out your life the way you want it to be, and you need to. The bottom line is that when people stepped back and looked at Neil, they weren't surprised, because they've seen him in dark places. Obviously, they were shocked, and actually, at this point in his career, it seemed like he had everything going for him, which makes it even more intimidating. It's hard for younger musicians who looked up to him to say, "Holy shit, I want to be where he is," and he just did that. But I guess what I'm saying is, he did. When it came down to it, it was a confluence of things, but he never left room for himself. Mm-hmm. And I give you all the spiritual energy to to take time for yourself, however that looks, however that, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, that comes in many different forms, but you will not hurt yourself. You will not take your life. You will be here.
No.
And that's now I understand, because Neil's inside of me. I mean, he is pushing me on this journey. So, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that with me. It pains me to hear that you had these anxiety attacks, whatever it was. I mean, I can emulate to it. I can feel it, but you must, otherwise you will drown. That he drowned. He didn't, and that's just who he was. Anyway, that's. You need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate that so much.
That's true.
I mean, the bottom line is, artists feel things very deeply, and so we really do have to have, coping mechanisms, because otherwise, you can feel overwhelmed, and it can be very daunting. In my case, both of the situations I'm referring to were not self-inflicted. They were like, they would just happen to me. They were just like accidental, happenstances that happened. So it wasn't like a deliberate, I've never attempted suicide or anything.
No,
like
but
that.
I'm saying that being somebody with anxiety, if your heart is, if you're like I used to have the same issues. It was like, oh my God, my there's a muscle in my eye that's twitching. I think my eye's going to explode.
Right.
If you're thinking in those kinds of terms, I think you're fine. I think the point is that, well, I bless you, my friend. I hope that there's some beautiful things that come to you in ways that are almost divine, not material things. It's just that they provide you some peace of mind, because it was profound. I had profound. It took a long time for me to get out of my own way, and I'm still fighting it. But you do need to. I think the best way to truly, honestly. So now that we can acknowledge that these weren't suicide attempts, this is more about anxiety, or whatever, sort of happenstance. I think the way I feel you is that you just need to continue to push yourself out of your comfort zone so that you know that you're that's what Neil's message was to me, was to promote and to find young, authentic creatives and encourage them to continue to push themselves out of their comfort zone. Because then you can really just say, well, I'm still growing. I'm not just staying where I'm comfortable.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't even believe. I mean, I would say the thing that I'm most proud of in my whole life, in terms of like any of my accomplishments, quote unquote, that you could point to, I would say the thing that I point to as that I'm most proud of is like my spiritual journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like even if I'm left with nothing, I have that, and so I'm always going to be rich because inside I have that. And I think that really that is really what life is about. I mean, this new song that I just put out on last Friday, it's called State of Ease, and it's about the sort of the quest for the mythical state of ease, which has just plagued me my whole life. It's all that I want, is just to be in a state of ease, and how challenging that is to actually be in one. And that's what the song is about. And in yogic terms, I mean, that's, to be in a state of ease is considered the greatest. It's the ultimate life achievement, basically. But just to be calm in the face of pretty much whatever life throws your way.
I do want to tell you, I mean, I would not ask you to reveal your age. My advice for you is that that will, obviously you keep cultivating that, but truly, that inner peace it's almost unattainable. So I think that for people like us who I don't know, I'll just speak for myself. I mean, who just, there's insecurity. There's just feeling that I don't even know how to exactly articulate it, but I think if you change your expectations and know that just the fact that you're on a path towards peace and volcanism, then that's important. I this idea of finding, I mean, I interview a lot of people that are spiritual practitioners, and they come across and articulate being at peace, and some of them I think are, and I think then some of them are also everyone's dealing with their own madness. So the idea of like, I mean, I just think that you should it's expectations. That's the key. I mean, you're going to have so many more chapters of your life. You're going to birth children. You're going to have so many beautiful things in your life, and you're still going to be searching for that peace. So I think I think it's just measure your expectations on that, and if you have a discipline and things that can lock you into a good space, even if it's fleeting, then that's the important thing. But I can sit here and say at 41 that it's still it's only fleeting, that feeling of peace.
Yes, but it's like anything. The more you practice it and the more you get into the habit of feeling it, then the more frequently you feel it. And I'm finding that I'm getting longer and longer spells of being in it. And that's not to say I don't have emotions and get sad and grieve and get angry or get upset or get, of course. I mean, and especially when tragedy strikes or, things happen that are totally out of left field. We're human beings and we react. But to have that basis to come from is you're so much more, to be on more of an even keel, so that when the inevitable tragedy strikes, when the inevitable loss happens, when the inevitable happens, the reaction, you don't necessarily spring into sort of like chaos, right? And I'm in,
Absolutely, you're absolutely right about it. No, that's the Tao at its core. It's also, um, yeah. I mean, it's sort of just. Um, I mean, sometimes you feel like you're riding that crest of the wave, and you got no guardrails, but you're not gonna succumb to um, the projection and the bed of neuroses that we all find ourselves in, and that's I don't
sure.
to me it's like well anyway we have one more I have one more voice to play for you
Okay.
and then and we'll come back and break it down.
Okay, great.
Well, neither of my parents. They both. My father was Cherokee. He didn't grow up in a Cherokee community on a reservation, but he held a lot of the values, the spiritual values of the Cherokee Nation. My father was also a Baptist preacher, and so I think that the greatest thing was that came from my dad was to grow up with him explaining living our Christian religion, but also telling us that it's the same thing. I think those who are on a spiritual path not always are religious, but with us, we were both, and he would help us understand how there was God in everything around us. My Indian grandmother did the same thing. She would come and take us all into the woods in the winter when it was cold and everything was dry and there was no apparent life in the woods. And she would say, "Get something that you think is ugly." And we would gather these baskets of these gnarly-looking burrs and sticks and things, and we go back to our house, and Mama, we called her Mama Coolidge, and she would arrange all of these things in beauty and used paints and would make something beautiful out of everything. And she said there's beauty everywhere. So that was our life in the spiritual world. We didn't have the traditions. Those were things that I learned as a young adult because I reached out to the nation. So I don't know if that answers your question or if I'm just rambling.
No, you're doing. You're really because this is. Well, she did give a little bit of a clue there. You want to take a guess at who that is?
Gosh, that was so beautiful. I
Yeah.
am just, wow, that's very moving.
Yeah, that was my interview with Rita Coolidge from March of 2016, and
Wow.
yeah, and I just think that
Wow.
yeah. I mean, you're just you're just getting hip to the Jake Feinberg show, but I've done a lot of interviews with an older generation. This is somebody who was steeped in Native American traditions and practices, and yet her father was a Baptist minister. And I just, I would love if you could talk to the audience about, um, you know,
Well,
go ahead. I mean, just basically being a spiritual being. I believe that you are.
yeah.
I think one reason that you feel angst is because you are trying to get to a space where you feel like your soul is aligned with your humanity. I mean, when I was a kid, I suffered through a lot of that stuff because I was always an older soul. So I've really grown into myself, and I think that you are also growing into yourself. And I kind of wanted you to, on this Thanksgiving Eve, I just would like you to talk about to those who may be suffering in their own way or not even aware of that. How to live, how to stay on the righteous path.
Oh, one thing I have to say that last interview with Rita really sparked in me was just the realization that, nature, being out in nature is such a panacea. It's such a miracle healer and perspective giver. And even if you live in a city and you don't live anywhere near nature, if you take off your shoes and sit under a tree, and I try to do that. First of all, I try to get out in nature as much as I can. And I find it to be extremely humbling. I mean, there's nothing like thinking about the strength of a tree, and what it goes through. I mean, it gets windy and cold, we run inside, we turn the heat on.
Right.
And the tree is out there, swaying in the wind and surviving for hundreds of years, and it's incredible. And surviving drought, and yeah, there's just something really magnificent that we don't even look at trees. We just don't even, we take everything so for granted, but there are these incredible miracles all around us. And I think we've become a little bit sort of inured to the miracles and the wonder that is just around us in everything. And I love what she said, that, beauty and life was in God, was in everything. And I really, really, really try to always be aware of that and sort of enjoy the magnificence of just appreciating things, little things, and trying not to sweat the small stuff, trying not to complain about first world problems. We really kind of like, or at least I have a tendency to sort of distract myself by just complaining about just stupidest stuff, There's a great video that I think everyone should do themselves a favor and go on YouTube and watch. It's Weird Al Yankovic. Okay, it's really funny, and it's called First World Problems. Okay, and it's hilarious, and it's just in 3 minutes it'll just change your life, because you realize, oh my God, that's me. I'm just constantly complaining about this ridiculous thing, And I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can get, I mean, part of it is, well, I think when you get back to the West Coast, it would be cool to meet up and do some microdosing together, because I feel like we could, we could go a little bit deeper on this stuff, and because I mean, to me, all that stuff falls away when you get humbled in your life.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about having, like, God, I don't know how to say that, not having heart palpitations and thinking you might die. I'm just when everybody has their thing coming to them, in the sense that when you get humbled to a degree, and you can see life and unconditional love, and then all of a sudden you just stop complaining, period. And I think that's kind of where you want to get to is, I just know that my daughters fundamentally changed, and I can tell you more about it, but just that they inspired. I became so much less responsible when they were born. I started to dream again, and they have inspired me and really are my teachers. And I'm not always great to them. I can get angry with them and upset with them, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is it's really wasted energy. And so I think you need to sort of just continue to work on getting closer to your true nature and away from the complaining, because it just doesn't even in the face of, like, no, it's just it goes really deep. But I am so touched to be able to connect with you on this day. I want you to just keep moving forward and keep doing your thing, um, and you know, and lean and feel the pain too. I mean, don't move away from it, but also know that you have many, many beautiful things awaiting you in your life. And I want you to just have that peace of mind as you move forward. And it was just it was my honor to connect with you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Jake. Yeah, I had a great time, and I feel the same way. I really appreciate you having me on. It's really fun.
Hey man, happy Thanksgiving. Let's find some time
too.
when I'm out on the West Coast. We'll figure out a time to microdose together. I guess you're the person I'm going to do it with. All right.
You're on.
All right. Yeah. Have a great day.
Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, my friend. Much love. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. And just another cosmic hang here on the Jake Feinberg Show. That's it for now. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you later.
My time coming any day. Don't worry about me, no. Been so long I felt this way. I ain't in no hurry, no. Voices tell me what to say. They tell me where I'll go. Rainbows ain't down that highway where ocean breezes blow. Don't worry about me. Nah, don't worry about me, no. I ain't in no road. Nah, 'cause I know where to go. California, preaching on the burning shore. California, knocking on the golden door. Like an angel, standing in the shadow of light, rising up to paradise. You know I'm gonna shine, shine. My time coming any day. Don't worry about me, no. Been so long I felt this way. I ain't in no hurry, no. Been so long I felt this way. Now time sure passes slow. Still I know I'll lead the way. Their voices tell me so. Don't worry about me. Nah, don't worry about me, no. I ain't in no hurry. Nah, 'cause I know where to go. California, a prophet on the burning shore. California, a knocking on the golden door. Like an angel, standing in the shadow of light, rising up to paradise. You know I'm gonna shine, shine. You would not believe it. They say you will receive it. Shine. You see what brought before me. I will burn it in the air. You will follow me. You are up to glory. Now call that thunder and speak the same. ain't no road, no afternoon. Streets turn gray as I watch the car below.